Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. We have one or two more seats up front in case anybody wants to move up. Otherwise, I'm going to try and get started. I appreciate you coming out today. My name is Michael Allen. Thank Burr and Burton for letting us use their facility today to host. We're trying to host meetings in different locations and different days of the week to make it perhaps a little bit more easy for people to attend with different schedules. And I just wanted to thank you all for being here. My name is Michael Allen with Regrowth Planning. Can the folks in back hear me okay?
Yeah.
Saying, not so much? Okay. I'll try and speak up. Also joining me is Jackson Lasarso of Saratoga Associates there, joining us via Zoom to help moderate some of the Zoom conversation and questions that might come up that way. This is the third of a three-part series as part of the town plan update, where we're looking at specifically economic development in the town of Manchester. And after this meeting, this will be kind of wrapping up the initial sort of public outreach. And after this, we're going to be starting to sit down with the Planning Commission and developing some preliminary goals and strategies and action items that we think would address what we've heard from the public. So later on this summer, we'll then be coming back to you guys and presenting those preliminary goals and strategies to get your feedback before we actually get into writing the plan. So, as you probably know, we've conducted quite a bit of public outreach over the last couple of months through various surveys to try and get input from folks. And just briefly, what I want to do is go through some of the things we heard from those surveys and from other outreach. And then I'd like to share with you some initial ideas that we have regarding economic development. And then after that, I'd like to open it up to a discussion, get your thoughts on what everybody feels. So as part of the visioning survey, we asked people to rank what the overall priorities are in the town. And the number one ranked issue on a scale of 1 to 7 was the top one here: attracting desired local businesses and jobs. And when we asked, well, what types of businesses and jobs do you feel we need to have in town? The most common responses we got were professional, higher wage jobs, entertainment and recreation, restaurant and food service, healthcare, manufacturing, light industrial, small business development, technology, engineering type jobs, as well as trade services, trade skills. That's what folks seem to feel were missing in this area. When we asked some of the local workforce folks, the folks that work here in Manchester, what factors contribute to you working in Manchester, below "it's just a job," which was the number one response. The second most popular answer was "it's a nice area to work," followed by "it's convenient to other places that I need to go." So Manchester has, we're at least a popular place to be working, and it has that going for it. When we asked the same workforce survey, what types of local job opportunities do you feel are needed? Again, from that survey, we heard back better compensation, benefits, career growth opportunities, career education, administrative office jobs, manufacturing, construction jobs, healthcare, and hospitality, food service jobs. So overall, there's a general desire to diversify the local economy a little bit. When we asked the employer survey, what challenges have you faced being a local business owner? The number one response was workforce recruitment and reliability. Local regulations being an issue. Regional tourism marketing not being as strong as it could be. Parking availability not being as available as it could be. And just regional economic growth challenges, the same labor issues and economic inflation issues that are happening everywhere. From a demographic standpoint, Manchester is a fairly older town. The state as a whole, Vermont, is facing, some of you were in our initial kickoff meeting at the library, you've heard some of this. We're facing a workforce shortage in many ways. We have a low retention rate for younger high school graduates and college graduates. After they graduate, they tend not to stick around and they take off to places that they feel are more exciting, have more opportunities for them. And many businesses, because of that, have been facing a workforce shortage. If we look at the median age breakdown by year, median age by year in the Manchester area, we're at about just under 53 years old, median age. The median age in Vermont as a whole is about 10 years younger than that. And the median age in the United States nationally is about 39. So we're a much older group. And if we look at the age distribution across the spectrum of folks that are very young, from 5 years old up to 85 plus, it doesn't compare very well to the distribution for the state of Vermont. We have a much higher percentage of folks that are in the 50 and above demographic, and we have a deficit of folks that are in the 20 to 35 year range. And so we have a lot of people that are going into exiting the workforce, going into retirement, and we don't have a lot of younger folks to kind of backfill some of that. And the reason this is important is because if we're looking to create jobs here locally, we're going to be competing with a lot of other communities all around the region for the same workforce. So it's going to be important to find out how we can attract that local demographic. Our economic development goals, based on what we've heard and looking at the survey results and looking at the town of Manchester overall, we want to diversify our local economy. We want to attract professional, higher wage jobs with benefits, support small local businesses or encourage the creation of new small local businesses. We want to try and serve locals better. There's a lot of folks that feel Manchester is, very much geared towards serving tourists. It doesn't serve as well the folks who just live here. We want to fill some of the vacant retail storefronts. There actually aren't that many, but they're very visible, the ones that are, and it's not a good look. When people come to Manchester and they see vacant stores, it's not a good look. We'd like to fill those. We want to leverage and enhance the town's reputation as a desired destination overall. And last but not least, retain young workers and younger families. So that's a lot. How do we do that? The current town plan, to its credit, does discuss a lot of these issues. It does talk about them, but it doesn't really get into the detail of, well, how are we going to fix these, or how are we going to address these? So what I would like to do is propose some ideas tonight, and after that, open it up to discussion, get some feedback on what people think. For the purposes of kind of simplicity, I think we can essentially break these issues and goals down into kind of three different buckets, if you will. The first bucket, I'm going to call small business development. The issues in that bucket are filling the vacant retail spaces, serving the local population better, and curating some upstart growth, maybe trying to nurture some new local businesses starting up here to replace maybe many of the retail outlets that aren't really as in demand right now. The second bucket is large business recruitment. What can we do to bring some higher wage jobs to the area, some career growth, and diversify our local economy so we don't have everything really reliant on just the kind of tourism shopping that we have been. And the third bucket is increasing Manchester's appeal to younger residents and younger demographics. That deals with issues of things to do in town, activities, recreation, entertainment, nightlife, and jobs. These are all things that younger people would be looking for. That's why they will often go to other places. So in the first bucket, small business development, the issues we're looking at the vacant retail spaces, serving locals better, and curating the upstart growth. Right now with the retail spaces, the issues we have is many of the retail spaces we have are very large. They're geared toward large companies, 4,000, 3,000 square foot in size. They have relatively high rents. They have longer lease agreements. None of these are very friendly to somebody just starting out with a little small business. They just want to get started. It doesn't work very well. For small business growth, we want smaller retail spaces, lower rents, lower barrier to entry, and hopefully less risk at getting started. So the idea is, how do we bridge this gap between these two things? What's missing, in my opinion, is a middleman. In the middle here, let's call them a matchmaker entity for purposes of a placeholder name to link these retail spaces to the small business growth, and I'll explain how something like this might work. We could call this Manchester Match or whatever we want to call it. That's a temporary name. This matchmaker entity could be filled by the role of the town doing it, or maybe the Manchester Business Association could be in charge of doing it, or some other nonprofit entity that would be in charge of organizing this. And the way it would work is they would conduct an outreach campaign through this entire area to find any local small businesses that are starting up, or maybe they're already established. Maybe they already have a home business. They're doing everything out of their home on the web, but they're scaling up. Maybe they feel like they're ready to take a step and have a retail space or some other scenario, to reach out and find all the ones in the Northshire area that we feel might be potential candidates. This could be done as either a competition, a contest. It could be done as a talent scout campaign. It could be just done as an application program. There's many different ways to do it. But the idea is we proactively go out there and try and find these folks. The matchmaker would go to small business number one and say, how much space do you need? What kind of space do you need? What's your time frame? What other considerations might we need to know? And start to collect that information. And then going on down to small business 2, 3, 4, 5, on down the line, and start to identify candidate businesses that we feel might be best qualified for this. I feel like we would need to do some amount of screening to identify businesses that we feel these might have a better chance of success. Maybe they're just better organized, and their product or service we feel might be more popular. Maybe it has a better synergy with some other products and businesses that we're working with, but identify the best candidate businesses for this. It would then now go to the owners of the retail spaces that are vacant and say, okay, you have 4,000 square feet of vacant retail space that's been vacant for a while. We have 5 candidates, businesses that could fill up that entire space, and they're ready to start right now. You could start collecting rent. Let's work out an arrangement. Let's negotiate an arrangement where we can get these tenants in there. The idea would be break up that large 4,000 square foot space into smaller, more bite-sized, small business friendly spaces, maybe 500 square feet or so. And the town could help match 50% of the fit-up costs. There are grants available and funding available for space division and fit-up grants, which the town could take advantage of and help fund this stuff. Share that fit-up burden with the landlord, so they kind of meet them halfway. The landlord then could maybe agree to cap the rent for a certain period of years at X. So the small business owner has something to hang their hat on as far as knowing that they're not going to be what they have to expect, at least. Perhaps having shorter 3-month leases, and then the town could potentially underwrite the rent during this trial period. Whereas, so if one of these businesses fails, they go under, the town guarantees to pay the remainder of the rent. So the landlord doesn't have to worry about all this going bust. They have some confidence that they're still going to be getting paid for this. That's the basic idea, is to try and bring these two forms together and lower the barrier for the new business and raise the confidence, lower the risk for the two entities so they can come together. In this scenario, businesses 1, 2, 3, 4, they might be individual businesses, but another option is business 5 might be shared by a couple of other businesses that they aren't big enough to even fill one store. Maybe they only need to fill one stack of shelves of pottery that they're making, custom Vermont crafted pottery. Instead of having their own store, they could share a store with a couple of other businesses like them, and then they would share a single point of sale, single employee that does all the checkouts for all of them, almost like a consignment store. I know there's a couple of businesses already in Manchester that work off of this model, so there's a lot of potential flexibility in how this could operate. This would drastically lower the barrier to entry for a small business. The smaller lease spaces and the lower rent would make it more affordable for people. The shorter rent period reduces the risk and commitment. The landlord gets to fill otherwise vacant property that's been sitting there empty for about a year, and they would get that out of it. The town gets, now we have eliminated a vacant storefront area, so it looks more vibrant. It doesn't look like anything's amiss. And the landlord would be protected by underwriting by the town during the trial period. Now, there might be some negotiation in how this might all be funded. This is an example of how this might work. This, if it worked, would be a win-win scenario between the landlords and the tenants in making this come together. It would likely start out as a small scale operation, I think, at first, a pilot project, if you will. If successful, we can take any lessons learned in the process and say, okay, let's adjust things a little bit. Maybe we'll do a second round and do this again in another year. It would create essentially a small business startup or incubator for some local businesses to get off the ground and have a shot for 1 or 2 years to get them into town. And, it's not maybe just businesses in Manchester. We could be reaching out to the broader area, the whole shires. So that's the basic idea. From the large business recruitment standpoint, we want to kind of look at things from the other side of the spectrum. There, we're looking to bring in higher wage jobs, career growth, and diversify our local economy. The things that we want in identifying and looking at the survey results and town, there's an interest in bringing in some technology work, medical fields, light manufacturing, clean energy, skilled tradespeople, and culinary hospitality type work, because we're already a tourism-based town. Those would help support that and strengthen it. Our local strengths are many. We have a desirable place to live, natural beauty, good schools, outdoor recreation, a nice community, historic character. We have many things going for us that would make us attractive for a larger business to come here. Our two biggest challenges, though, are the housing costs and a small workforce. So how do we overcome that? I'm going to go through a couple of case studies of different communities and businesses that have tried to address the same issue. Case study number 1 is Hula Lakeside in Burlington, Vermont. This is a 14-acre, they call it an innovation campus. It's basically, many of you might already be familiar with it, net zero solar and geothermal campus. representing. They have representation for 100 different local technology and startup companies that are represented there or have office space there. They also have co-working and community space, and they're also working on site housing, which is, I think, a key component to how you bring something like this into Manchester. The idea, Burlington is in a different animal. You have a larger workforce there, but for something like Manchester, if we're going to attract a couple of local firms to come there, a housing component I think is very important as a safety net, or just to provide that. Case study 2, the Putnam Block in Bennington is part of a downtown redevelopment project. It includes retail, office, and residential space designed for Bennington College, Southwestern Vermont Medical Center, the VNA, Bennington Pottery, and others. The idea is redeveloping a whole block around some of the existing older buildings that are already there, providing some renovation and housing into that. So this whole works as a more coordinated overall block development for them. Case study 3, this is a much bigger, I'm hesitant to use this example as it's a much bigger and ambitious scope, but Pathway Devons in Devons, Mass, they developed a 45-acre campus and speculatively pre-built a number of large industrial buildings just as shells based on what the type of businesses they wanted to bring in. They said, we want to bring in these types of companies. We're just going to build them a factory without asking and then invite them to come. A very bold and risky move, but they purpose-built multi-tenant manufacturing space, provided all the permitting and infrastructure already, went to these businesses and says, we're ready for you, you can just move in. They also created multiple just shell buildings and created shovel-ready sites for some of the other tenants that they were also looking to do. So far, this has been successful, and this is a much more aggressive and not really what I would suggest we would do because it's very risky, but it gives you an example of being more proactive. Case study 4, Graylux Works in North Adams, Mass. This took an old mill building and retrofitted it on a 9-acre campus, repurposing the mill building to bring in distillery and culinary production, event spaces, co-working spaces, maker spaces, and residential lofts all into one thing that now serves as a multifunction space for the community. They hold events there, weddings, trade shows, and so forth, and it brings in a lot of businesses. So all of these case studies, or some of these might be a little bigger than what we're focusing on maybe for Manchester. It might be larger scale, but we can apply maybe a smaller scale approach to it. The basic theme of all of them is we identify what it is that we want to have here in town, and we proactively either go out and get it or build what they need to attract them to come here. So much like we have Hula Lakeside up in Burlington, would it be possible to develop our own version of something like that here in the southern part of the state? That's the basic idea. The Manchester model would be the planning and marketing for the creation of a similar tech or innovation type campus here in Manchester that's custom tailored to the types of industries that we want to attract here. So looking back at the industries that we want, medical, skilled trades, tech and manufacturing, clean energy, culinary, hospitality. Medical fields would be very helpful. We have an aging population. A lot of folks are retiring here. The aging population would be well served by enhanced medical presence here in Manchester. The skilled trades, tech, manufacturing, and clean energy would all go to boost our local workforce. And the culinary and hospitality, as I mentioned, that would help boost and support our local tourism industry. And of course, as I said, I think an important component of this would be worker housing. The one difference of this to some of the other models, I think we might want to have a higher emphasis on career training and education as part of this, finding companies and local educational services that sync well together, such as some companies doing trade maintenance, and then having also the educational system tied with it. So you have the jobs, and you also are creating a hub where new people can start to learn those trades, and you get them building off of each other. So targeting employer plus school training opportunities, anywhere where we can do that, medical training with on-site medical fields. I think that would be a bonus for a couple of different reasons. This would be shifting Manchester more towards becoming a place where people can also learn to build their career. It's not just a career, it's also where you can learn to build that up. And I think that would also be a draw or a retaining measure for some of the local people here who might otherwise leave for other options, stay and learn, build a career. Potential partnerships and networks that might come out of this. Here's a long list between Southwestern Vermont Medical Center, Vermont State University, the Leahy Institute. There are many potential partnering institutions that might work with something like this. And so we have a lot of folks out there who are interested in teaming up on things like this that we could potentially reach out to. Now, potential sites. The town of Manchester has a number of different, oh, my laser pointer doesn't work on a TV screen, not surprising. We have some industrial lands at the north and east parts of town that would be potential sites for this. One of them, for example, the gravel pit that's just north of Town Hall and Riley Rink. At some point, that gravel pit is going to run out of source material and would just be sitting there dormant. So what do we want to do with that site? Something like that might be a potential candidate area to look at. We have water and sewer already coming up to this area. The campus components that we would be looking for, we would want access to water, sewer, and fiber optic internet connectivity. We would want 2 to 3 anchor companies that would be the actual job creator jobs in that campus, but coupled with an innovation learning hub education center, the educational component I talked about, where you get some skill training to move into those jobs. On-site employee housing, ideally like a solar, clean energy, geothermal component to the campus for clean energy, and walking trails, bike paths, connections to the downtown. The first steps the town could take in developing this is just, we would need to put together a scouting group to go out there and begin outreaching to the target businesses that we would like to do and the partner organizations, start beginning the conversation about what it is that we're trying to create, determine the feasibility or do a market feasibility on what sector focuses make the most sense for as far as partnering, and then begin planning and preparations to either build and plan this facility or developing what would be a shovel-ready site where the town does as much of the legwork, putting in the infrastructure and getting the permitting and approvals and a lot of that bureaucratic stuff out of the way, so anybody moving in has a much easier time building up. And lastly, with increasing appeal to the area, we're looking to appeal to younger populations. That deals with jobs, things to do, activities, recreation, nightlife, and entertainment. From the different surveys, the number one requested thing that everybody did was a movie theater. If all this town plan accomplishes is it gets a movie theater in town, I think there would be a lot of people that would say it was a success. The problem is, of course, the way the Hollywood movie system works is small local theaters can't survive profitably unless you're like a 6 or 8 screen cinema. There's no money to be made. So the only options are nonprofit theater models, of which there are several in this region, where they move to a nonprofit model. They still host shows. You still get current movies, not as quickly and as so forth, but they're still there, and they also host some other events. So the movie theater would be difficult to do, but it would probably have to be a non-profit model. Some of the other things that we heard about nightlife, sort of ideas for a younger audience, ideas for live music. A lot of people mentioned that the music on the green events were very popular. Outdoor enjoyment, walking past nature trails, access to the water or the river were very popular. And also having the ability to do some four-season activity, with folks mentioning there's not as much to do in the winter. And now we've been often talking about all of these as separate things. Where are we going to put a movie theater? Where are we going to put like a youth center and so forth? What if there was an ability to do all of these at once? And so this is what I'd like to talk about. The Riverwalk group has done a great job in raising money and putting together efforts to get the Riverwalk realized, especially with the new bridge, walking trails. You get access to the river, plan future trail connections, potential amphitheater. The amphitheater is good because it would help probably expand the music options. So when we do have music on the green sort of events, it would kind of help expand that ability. So with an amphitheater, you usually have a stage facing a sloped or tiered hillside where people can sit and enjoy, and it's very lovely. It's very nice. But this is an outdoor venue and it's summer only, so it's a little bit limited. So what if, when it's not summer, we could close off the one side of the stage and open up the other side, and that side faces an indoor theater. In that scenario, we would have an indoor and outdoor facility. The indoor theater can be used during the winter and the summer, the outdoor theater in the summer, and we would get much more use out of it. Now, in this scenario, this could also serve as our movie theater. In fact, you could have our movie theater outside on the lawn at night. So if the weather's nice, you could do a movie out on the lawn. And it also would work for weekend music shows, summer concerts, film festivals, music festivals, special events, weddings, conferences, student performances, community theater, outdoor dining. It has a whole slew of potential capabilities if we were to kind of instead look at it from this perspective. A lot more wide programming options. So now, instead of just having a movie theater that has a nonprofit running it that just does one thing and they just show movies, what if we had a nonprofit that was running a facility like this that had a much wider range of programming options available, so that there's always something happening for everybody? You could do something like this on the water along the Battenkill, have movies out there at night, concerts, and so forth. The key, I think, to it would need to be that the programming would need to be really geared toward, for the most part, locals. I know that the Riverwalk, some of the folks that weren't as nicely supportive of the Riverwalk effort complained that, well, the bridge was just for the tourists. If something like this were designed for the locals, then I believe it would get a much better support. So in this scenario, this facility could be a town-owned facility, but it would be operated, managed, programmed completely by a nonprofit organization. They would handle all the day-to-day programming and marketing and so forth. The town wouldn't have to deal with any of that. You could expand the programming and reach of the local partnership organizations, such as Southern Vermont Arts Center, the Dorset Theater. There might be a lot of synergy that happens between that. And it would be programmed and managed to serve the local community first. Community events year-round, music, movies, plays, but some occasional larger events, such as a music festival or something, that could also be attractive to visitors and tourists to the area. So the added benefit is something like this, if it were kind of expanded in idea, could strengthen Manchester's arts and cultural reputation and also help bolster our local tourism. So other considerations for this, it doesn't have to be big. It just has to be programmed well. Programmed so there's always things happening and there's a variety of things happening. The current plan right now addresses this as suggesting that we need to have a downtown nightlife program, but nobody really seems to know exactly what a downtown nightlife program would be, how it would work. So I personally feel that if we want something like this to happen, we need to be proactive, build the shell of this, and let the programming be taken care of. So we need to build the shell for this if we want something like this to get off the ground. As I mentioned, a lot of the Riverwalk effort has been done with local donations. I think if the community could be, I guess, informed that how this might just serve people that live here, it would get a much better support. And we could do fundraising, Kickstarter. The movie theater alone would be, I think, a win. So other considerations, not directly related to that, we need to enhance cellular and Wi-Fi service somehow. I know there's a lot of concern about not distracting or interrupting the view of the mountains, and I understand that. But from a standpoint of young folks and visitors, not being able to just do a quick Google search to see where they can get something is a bit of a challenge. We'd like to encourage and enable more outdoor dining and activity wherever possible, and encourage enabling more small businesses that cater to that downtown nightlife and entertainment focus. So between these kind of three buckets, we have being an incubator for small local businesses, developing a tech and education campus, and improving the local appeal. I feel once the three of these kind of pieces start to get momentum and start to take shape, then the town of Manchester can start to begin rebranding itself away from just a destination where folks shop to something that's a little bit more diverse than that. Maybe something that's more about personal growth and fulfillment. I don't know, but something more along those lines. And so with that, I want to just kind of open it up to discussion and take some questions. Sorry, the woman right behind you. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna speak to that last plan a little bit. I'm Amelia Wiggins. Yeah.
Oh, I do have a microphone. It was turned on a moment ago. Testing.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
I'm sitting right next to you.
Oh, nice.
Hi, Amelia Wiggins, Executive Director at Southern Vermont Arts Center. Thank you.
Thanks.
I want to talk to that last point of the appeal that was just brought up. I really believe that Manchester has incredible cultural assets that are undertold as a story, and that we could become a true destination for entertainment, the arts, and our culture here. And I think what your plan maybe is limited by is recognition of the existing strengths already in town, including the incredible physical properties. Hildene, SVAC, we're financially strong and growing. We're about to open a new building and we have an underutilized 400-seat theater. So instead of building something new, there are nonprofits in really strong positions right now to work with the education community, with the town, and with each other to really capitalize on what we already have here. And I know all of us, I'm thinking about my partner at MMF in the back there, and my fellow EDs at Hildene, at Dorset Theater Festival. We would all love to work together with the town on that. I will say one thing I see though, when you think about other models, and I noticed that the nonprofit movie theater model, most of those other successful models have public support for their nonprofits. And that is something we're sorely lacking from the town and from the state here. So it will take partnership, not only in terms of coordination, but also in terms of funds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello? Yeah, I would build on that. I think there's a lot here that you could coalesce and make more visible and more integrated. The farm communities, the outdoor activities, the artist communities. I think those are strengths. Making this a medical center or tech research center, that's a hard ask, given the financial kind of structure of Vermont compared to its competing regions. So I just wanted to add though, if you've considered trying to create a vision or a brand, like in an artist community is something that you see sometimes, or a culinary center, or an outdoor activity center, but so that the town has an identifiable personality that people can easily latch onto, and that we could use as a focal point for building out the strategy.
Just to answer your question, I'm hinting at the idea that we need to rebrand. I don't know that we're ready to yet. I think we need to figure out exactly some of these details, but the idea is once I think we have a couple of these things in motion, we do need to rebrand. I threw out the idea of what was the option I gave? It was basically about growth and fulfillment, because it's really about, I mean, we have a lot of nature and food and art and education here. It would really be about kind of personal growth and fulfillment. That was an idea. I think it's a little early, and I would probably leave that more to folks that do that sort of branding and marketing too. I'm not that guy, but something in that direction I think might be useful. Sorry, who else? Yes, go on.
Thanks. So I think what we're all kind of circling around here is that a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Right? And I think more to the point, the proposed builds look very expensive. And my assumption is that in order to pay for those, debt would have to be issued, which would mean higher taxes, which to me would exacerbate existing issues on current businesses. So I'm not for that. I do like the not-for-profit theater.
What's that?
I do like the not-for-profit theater though. Possibly even in that giant open square footage you got there, but that's kind of besides the point. What I would ask is that, while I understand you survey businesses, surveys often are asked with generic questions, right? And they often create a specific frame. What I would ask is that you develop a roundtable of business owners. Sit them down and ask them, what are your friction points, right? What are the issues you run into specifically with running a business in Manchester? And then coupled to that, I'd like you to do how do I put it, a mock run opening a business in Manchester, right? What does it mean to open a business for, we'll say, opening a restaurant? Right, what are you going to run into doing it? And then based on the friction points you find there, what can the town do to alleviate it? I don't expect them to be able to solve everything, but you might find.
So when you say a mock run, you're talking about going through more of the application procedure of
I mean, the whole thing, whole realtor, yeah, financials, go through the whole mock run of what it means to open a business in Manchester and identify what your friction points are.
Do you think any of the first option of trying to do the matchmaking, of trying to link local businesses to.
Matchmaking, so. How do I want to articulate this? Not against it, I think it's an interesting idea. Here's my concern with it. If you are applying a filter to who gets that matchmaking. I could foresee there being illegal. The first time you say no to a business. That needs to be on very strong legal ground. I don't know how you would do filtering right now, I'm assuming all that's kind of TBD. But I would expect you to need to be very careful.
Sorry, yeah, and.
I just had something to add right onto that. So I had actually put in a suggestion that was kind of like the matchmaking. I don't know if this was built off of my suggestion, but I lived in a town in Maine. Where we did something kind of similar to that. Where if I was a business owner and I wanted to build in Manchester, if I lived in Manchester. I would put together a business plan and submit it to this board through the town. And then the board has a group of people that they have been well known that they are looking to invest in people and in businesses that are looking to build in our town. So the board says, oh, Johnny from Johnny Rockets is going to be presenting here at this spot on this time, and he's going to go over his business plan. And then everybody that's interested comes down and they listen to it in almost a Shark Tank way. People start saying, who's going to work with Johnny? All the interest rates, all the everything terms are all set. So there's no one's getting taken for a ride. But it makes it easier. And then the town steps in and helps as well. It's a little different than what you were talking about, but very similar. And I've seen it in action and it builds the community.
Okay, thank you. There's someone over there, if we can get the mic. That might be why in some communities, they do something like this as a test. It's like a sweepstakes sort of thing that might sidestep any questions. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, first, thank you, for putting this all together. I think that what has been proposed, there's, a lot of opportunity for us, as a community to maybe, incorporate in a different translation. And I'm just gonna give a couple of examples that are kind of low impact to what this kind of bigger picture is. So for one, movies.
Mhm.
I think that we can certainly have movies. We can certainly get a mobile movie theater, which is like a blow up, okay? And we can try and figure out an arrangement to be able to rent movies, because movie rentals are not cheap. There's a licensing situation that you have to go through. We have a partner up at Stratton that we could probably talk to in making that happen. Insofar as use of empty spaces, I love what has been proposed, but it requires a lot of like red tape and paperwork for the big picture. So on a small, like on an immediate scale, we should really start thinking about promoting pop-ups. They're super low impact. I have a number of friends who have retail businesses, and they actually do pop-ups in different cities and states during Christmas time or, high traffic seasons in certain locations. And they're only there for maybe 30 days. But it starts to generate diversity that we're looking for. And it also allows feedback on a temporary basis of what works.
Right.
Another thing, the tech, insofar as tech education and partnering with businesses, I can think of 10 trade businesses right now, local trade businesses that are having a heck of a time finding employees. There are spaces here that could have satellite tech schools in existing spaces. One of them is right where the Price Chopper is. there's like 3 buildings along Price Chopper that had been empty. That was, I think it was an outfitting store and there was a sneaker store. You know, that can be turned into a classroom, a trade classroom, and that is something that could be pretty immediate if we get the right partners through like Southwest Tech. And those students could have internships here in town, many of them who live here in town. And those jobs are needed. I mean, I'm sure people here have had to wait a long time for a plumber when their pipes froze this winter. It's because there's a backlog, you know, or a carpenter or an electrician. Right now, those students have to go down to Bennington, you
Right.
know, so why not have them here? So I love everything that's going on here, you know, but again, you know, in improving appeal, what everyone is talking about is that we really, really need to start thinking about the things that we currently have that we're not utilizing and start with smaller steps. Putting, you know, a grandiose technological space in the gravel pit, when we don't know when that resource is gonna run out. And 2, it could very well be the situation that we're running into right now with our outlet stores. Like, what if it doesn't get off the ground? We have another ghost building on a much larger scale. And so I think we have to just be a lot more proactive with the empty spaces that we have. And also as a community with the town, decide to make investments on a smaller scale, like the movie theater outdoors or whatever or whatnot. But
So smaller baby steps.
smaller, yeah. Let's really start getting creative with what we have and start on small scale and then work up.
Pardon me, Reese.
Hey, hello, everyone. I want to expand on what she said and also what this gentleman over here said. You know, I have 2 businesses. I employ about 100 people between Rowland and Bennington, and I love this, right? I live here right behind here, but I think we just passed New York as the 2nd most taxed state in the country, right after Hawaii. So for you to bring any large corporation into the state of Vermont when they can go across the river in New Hampshire and pay 0 tax, hard pull. For you to get any of these projects off the ground with Act 250, it will take you a lifetime and millions and millions and millions of dollars in engineering fees to be able to do sort of that. And like he said, to open a business and actually start doing business in Vermont, it will cost you, I mean, we make Massachusetts look like Texas. I mean, we literally do. I'm building a facility for my Subaru store in Rowland, Vermont. I bought a 14-acre property that was an existing dealership 3 years ago. That's a contaminated site. It's taken me 3 years and almost $1 million to get an Act 250 permit to clean up a contaminated site that is full of lead and mold, and it's actually contaminating the waterway behind it. In New Hampshire, I would have been operating out of that facility 3 years later. In Vermont, I haven't even put a shovel on the ground yet. So we want to do all these things, and we want a town and a state that is conducive to business and having people. And I don't think that there's a single person in this room that doesn't want clean air and doesn't want clean water and doesn't want a clean environment. But we also need an environment where businesses can come in and industry can come in and they actually want to be here. I mean, this is the best place to raise a family probably in the country. And I lived in a lot of places. But to bring a business here and to get somebody to move here to work. I mean, I was at a meeting with Mike Pichek in Bennington, and the CEO of the hospital was there, and he goes, I have a hard time hiring a doctor to come to Vermont because when they look at what they have to pay in taxes and insurance versus any other state in the country, I have to pay them significantly more money for them to come here, which the hospital can afford, and it drives down cost. So this is all great, but until we have a regulatory and a tax environment in this state to be able to attract business, especially small business, because to start a small business here costs a fortune that a small business can't afford, you're gonna have a hard time getting a lot of these things off the ground. And I love a lot of the ideas, but building next to the river, good luck.
Well,
that's right.
Yeah.
but to your point and the previous point, one of the things among the changes that are going through right now with that may or may not be going through right now with Act 250 would be reducing or excluding some of the review in these areas. The gravel pit site would be within that.
They're repealing Act 181 and they just added a provision for working lands that just got voted on and nobody.
Sorry.
So they're trying to repeal the road rule in tier 3 and tier 2 in Act 181 because of all the protests for a lot of the farmers, and they just included a provision today that nobody commented on. And I have 34 acres over here, so I'm very familiar with it. They added a provision on working lands and now they're gonna try to snake that through without testimony from the people that have been justifying. So we have a legislature in Montpelier that is running rogue with an agenda that doesn't benefit the people of the state. And again, I love the environment, but I also want to have an economic viability to be able to raise my children and stay here, and so does everybody else that's here.
Thank you. And to the previous point about perhaps it's better to reutilize some of our existing spaces for these educational training facilities. I agree. I just don't know if the retail frontage, the public retail frontage where we have folks shopping is the best use of that type of activity. We would rather have those be businesses, local businesses that are trying to survive, rather than have that be an education place. That's the main idea. Is maybe the education isn't like right on the sidewalk.
Yeah, just going off this gentleman's point, and also you, ma'am, from Southern Vermont Arts Center. To be perfectly clear, I'm here as Regional Commissioner for Conservation for the Regional Commission. I'm an Arlington resident. I sell stuff in y'all's wonderful town as a farmer, but not a Manchester resident. One thing that I've noticed in this presentation is there doesn't seem to be much consideration of the immense natural resource wealth that exists in this general vicinity. Currently, right now, the Ruffled Grouse Society is going through a multi-decade process with the Green Mountain National Forest, where there is large-scale clearing to establish more oak habitat. Currently, all of those millions of board feet are going over to Finch paper in Glens Falls to get turned into copy paper, toilet paper. One thing that I've been working on for a number of years now is trying to develop a cross-laminate timber facility in Bennington County, which is a process by which lower grade lumber can be converted into very quick, very cheap housing. Where I've also been working on and have dumped between grants and private investment about $6 million into the regenerative ag economy right in this area. And I would love to see Manchester have some element of the revival of the natural resources economy that is currently ongoing countywide, and see more integration of that in what I'm seeing here, because there's a lot of that happening. It's not in the village core or in the tier 1 A and B areas, but a lot of stuff happens outside of those zones. And it would definitely be good to see on the light manufacturing side, rather than a tech campus, which requires patent attorneys, friendly regulatory environments and tax structures, manufacturing that can be developed from the resources that we already have.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I think the most important thing right here now for everyone is money. And so what I've seen today is kind of pie in the sky. And the other thing, as far as bringing a movie theater to Vermont, most of the country wants to get everybody off the screen. They don't want children looking at screens. But I mean, we have such a wonderful area. The park is fantastic. You've got skiing in the winter. You've got everything to be outside with, or at least teach children how to talk. They don't have to look at a screen. The other thing is basically, if you don't get your schools together, and I'm not talking about Burr and Burton. I'm talking about the schools in general in Vermont are now ranked. I called Rob Roper on this because I wondered that what he thought was the best because he's done so much work in it. We're ranked maybe 36. And he said because we do not have a Hispanic and a Black population, for the most part, we should be ranked number 49th or 50th. So if we don't get our schools together, nobody's gonna want to come here. And I'm certainly not talking about Burr and Burton, but I'm talking about, unfortunately, the public schools.
While I'm back here, back there. Oh, see, now you're all the way over there. Okay.
I can meet you halfway.
Thank you.
Kyle Turner, local resident. I want to thank everybody that said something so far. I'm gonna build off some of them. I've divided my little speech into 3 issues. Number 1, the matching group. I think it would be interesting, fun maybe, if there is also a stick for business owners that are leaving lots vacant. So there could be higher taxes on if you've left a retail space vacant for a year to try to have the carrot, but also the stick to promote things. I don't know if that's possible, but for the large business recruitment number 2, I agree having a trades education center would be really useful and helpful. Everyone has trouble finding plumbers and carpenters and all the things, so we know there's a market for that type of work. And what was my 3rd one? Increasing appeal to younger residents. I agree with the SVAC. That we have these awesome spaces, whether it be SVAC or the library, where they're constantly trying to get people to show up for events, but we all need to show up. Planning events is hard, and then we have to be the people that are showing up to them, even when it's annoying and it's a nice day outside. You gotta show up.
Oh. Yeah. I just want to make sure somebody else who hasn't done the shot, anybody else?
The back, right there.
Oh, here we are.
A couple of things. First of all, I love SPAC, I love the events there. But I think that one of the things that we need to think about is having things that aren't just events. You know, I think that's part of the nightlife problem here is, first of all, what do you do when it rains? And what do you do day in or day out, or night in and night out? If you live here and you want to socialize and you don't want to go out to dinner every night, we need a space that's accessible after 5 o'clock. We need a space that's accessible on Saturdays and Sundays. The library is only on Saturdays. And we need something that becomes part of people's daily lives and not just events. There's no question that we have wonderful events. We have the Dorset Theater Festival. It's wonderful, but we're not going to go to the same play every night. You know, we have SVAC, which has incredible programming, but they're usually 1 night only events. We need something that's going to be day in, day out. The other thing that we need is to address transportation.
I'm just gonna check in. I realize we may have questions online with Zoom and checking in.
Doesn't look like there's any questions on the Zoom. We had one comment about the possibility of a classic movie drive-in in the comments, but it looks like that's been the only thing on the Zoom so far.
Sorry, you guys can't hear that. It looks like we don't have any questions on Zoom, if I heard that correctly, but we did have somebody's comment about a classic drive-in theater. So I've been ready. So wait, there we are.
Bill Grunsick, I've been here. Maybe too long for some people, but invested a little bit in this community. And I think it's a worthwhile place to continue investing in. But we have to get realistic about what we are capable of doing. I think one thing that was hinted at by a number of speakers is let's look at our existing facilities rather than trying to have grand plans to create new facilities. And particularly when you talk theater, I can name 4 or 5 places that are underutilized and that can be used as a theater. Southern Vermont Art Center then has space. The library could be used in that manner. The old courthouse right down the street here, people are trying to see how to make good use out of that. So there's facilities to create those kinds of things, okay? Then what's our strengths? And I think we need to develop our business economy off our strengths. And I think that plan should do a good review with the community, what everybody thinks our strengths is. Now, I know recreation is a big one and outdoors, tourism, but break that down, how can we build on our strengths? Then I'm going to give you a couple projects that are bubbling that can really happen fairly quickly. There's been a lot of talk about more diversification in the recreation center, okay? There was a recreation center that was proposed for the rec area, large facility, multi-use facility that didn't make it the first time around, but is still bubbling. And if people want to get involved in that, I can tell you there's some money in the bank to make that happen already. Probably 40% of what's needed to build it. So if people want to see that happen, speak up. We need some more volunteers to raise some more money and to manage that facility to fruition. The second thing is about nightlife and entertainment. One of the issues way back when is there was plenty of nightlife, and then things got kind of tied up with, I guess, nightlife and having a good time and maybe over imbibing a little bit and getting on the roads and how do we safely move about. So one of the things that some people have talked about is, okay, let's have a tourist bus that floats around the town center from 1 in the afternoon to midnight, going to all the hotels, motels, tourist spots like that, and stopping up at all our recreation places. That can happen very quickly. So there's things like that I think if you want to see happen, then speak up and help make them happen. But that can happen this summer if you want it to happen. Because I think businesses are willing to pitch in and make something like that work. I could probably go on and on, but that's enough for now. But
I don't want any help.
if you stay up that long, we will do it.
West, member of the select board, thank you all for coming tonight. I wanted to just take a step back for a second and understand that one of the reasons why this process is incredibly important, so we don't lose sight of this, is that this is where ideas start, are percolated, and even discussions of something that some of us may think are pie in the sky or too big or that's never going to happen here. It may be the igniter that starts a conversation between 2 people that are here or another person, 2 organizations, a nonprofit, whatever. So all of these ideas about, a tech campus or, the Manchester Match, those are things that have been floated around potentially for a long time. But here we are having this conversation, and mind you, we shouldn't have this conversation every 8 years. We should be having folks having these conversations all the time, showing up at the planning commission meetings, right? In addition to that, we do have resources. Yeah, I know it's not something we all want to do, but my family evidently is stuck with it. We have resources already in the community, which a lot of you have already pinpointed. We talked a lot about tech school and opportunities for culinary and for plumbers and the trades. We have a resource here in Bennington County, which is Southwest Tech. And I know that they've been salivating over bringing more of those resources to Northern County. But transportation is a problem, right? Getting there is a problem. So all of these things that we've discussed are not necessarily all pie in the sky, but they're a start of a discussion of how we can get there. And we might find out that, okay, maybe the Ferrari model is not what we want to go for, but there's something that we can do utilizing our existing spaces, or a collaborative between local businesses that have similar types of offerings that could then spark another set of economic developments for our community. And I would say, and I see one of the former owners of the movie theater, I used to run the movie theater for a long time. I started with the first Harry Potter. It was a long time ago. And one of the things we found was that, you know what? Even if you continuously show, consistency is one piece of this puzzle, right? When you continuously are open later, if it's spontaneous, no one's going to show up because they don't know, they can't predict it. So you're talking about, I'm not going to go see the same play at Dorset Theater every single night. But if well, let me go check what, I wish the Vermont News Guide had more. That used to be the first thing. You open the first page, you look at the pizza coupon, and then you look at the movies, right? What's playing? It doesn't even matter. Let's just go show up, right? There's going to be something at 8:39. So yes, people did show up at even 9 o'clock at night for a movie in Manchester, believe it or not. There might only have been 5 of them, but it was 5 people. And I was giving that outlet for some people at that very moment. So I don't want to discourage people from getting up and having those pie in the sky discussions, because you never know where it's going to lead. Who's the next victim? All you. Thanks.
Yes. And I also want to invite, I've seen a couple of faces that have been frowning in the crowd. Since I started, you've had frowns on your faces. You may not know who you are, but you haven't spoken yet. So I'd really like to know why you're frowning.
Hi, I'm Cindy Lewis from Habitat for Humanity. Couple comments I just want to add is I love the incubator idea. When I was growing up in North Bennington, they had one that was called BCIC building. My parents were involved in that, and they started a small manufacturing and then we grew, so we were on to another building. But there's money out there for the state for incubator grants and stuff. And so make sure if you're thinking of a small business and you want to partner up, check it out. The Southwest Tech, I would love it if they came to the North Shire, because we have a partnership with them in the South Shire, building our house at 8 Crestwood. We would love to be able to have them come here, but they can't get here because of transportation and also classing. So if we could figure out a way to do that, that would be awesome as well, because there's students that up here that want to learn the trades, but can't really figure it out. So I encourage that too.
Okay. Thank you. On who else? Oh, we can. Here we go. No.
I just could ask a question. My name is Melissa. I'm fairly new to town. I thought Tyler's question was really good about her comment about the stick and the businesses, the empty storefronts. I'm assuming these are not locally owned, but these are, or we don't know. And is there anything that happens if a property owner just leaves their building in the downtown?
The properties are locally owned. She lives almost in London there. The property is locally owned. Some of the
Like on Depot Street.
some of the storefronts, especially with the storefronts that are leaving, where the outlets are, they're locally owned.
And they just get to sit there like that if the property owner.
That's it.
I mean, you gotta have So you gotta have a business who's one willing to rent it. And can pay the expense to be able to rent it, but. You know, back to my other, these businesses are leaving not because they don't wanna do business here, but because they can't afford to do business here, not because of the rent. But because of the tax and the regulation and all the stuff that you have to do to be able to operate a business in Vermont that you can't, that you don't have to do in other places.
Yes. And Bauer is not leaving. Because of
It's the whole retail environment, it's played a role too.
That's happening.
Sorry, that's reminding.
Is in regulations.
So,
It's
to my thinking, this leads to kind of an elephant in the room that hasn't been discussed yet, or maybe it has and I haven't heard it. E-commerce. I mean, how do small businesses in a town like this that has such a rich history and sense of community that I think we all agree is worth preserving? How does a small business survive in a world of e-commerce and tech? I mean, we talked about the movie theater idea, but movie theaters are dead because of Netflix. Small businesses are dying because of Amazon and big box online retailers. How do we compete with that? How do we deal with that? Are we talking about that? Why aren't we talking?
I mean, part of the vetting process that I was imagining being part of the Manchester match is, I think, just in general, and this isn't my idea, that lots of folks are thinking the same thing. We should transition away from a lot of that retail that we can just get online simply, and instead be focusing more on services and experiences, business that.
Much better than monetize services. And
Yes, but I think the businesses that are more likely going to survive are ones that either in the retail industry where they have a retail footprint and they're also online, so they get the best of both worlds. And then also someone that can provide an experience that you can't get online until we have, implants, I guess.
I'm sorry, just leads me to one idea I had to kind of deal with the e-commerce issue. So right now we have a bunch of small businesses, some sell online using the so-called hybrid model. And that may work for some small businesses in town. However, they're all doing it alone with no support. What if we collectively created an online storefront, call it, shopnorthshire.com or anything, so that we can pool our resources and potentially compete on a larger scale. So instead of just every business being every man for yourself trying to survive Amazon, you'd have businesses come together and create unified storefronts.
There is.
Okay.
There are. So there's justvermont.com. There's a number of different. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And also sometimes businesses like to have their own identity and not share a website, so that's sometimes an issue. Go ahead.
There are quite a few websites, and the only reason why I know this is because I've been looking for Vermont centric vendors for an upcoming event that's happening on Memorial Day weekend. And I found probably 5 different websites that cater to small businesses, small batch businesses, to come onto their website so that they can purchase it. One, last thing, and it's something that actually I had a little frown, so I'll be one of the ones who was frowning. You had mentioned when I suggested certain locations for a satellite educational center, that, that would be better served for retail. And I think one of the things that we have to sort of get over is that we do not have to be a strictly retail town. There's enough space here for locals and young people to thrive with the necessity of having education or tech. So having a partial building front that's for a satellite tech school or for whatever, a culinary school, whatever the case may be. I don't think it's going to deter people from coming here and saying what a lovely town this is and how much it has to offer. Secondly, I remember being young when movie theaters were really popular, and I asked myself, why is it that this movie theater thing is the present thing that young people are asking for. And I would invite you guys to go back to when you were young, and you were in a movie theater, which was a dark room with deep seated seats and raging hormones. Our kids do not have a place to be adolescents, not in a safe environment, and movie theaters were that. So I think we need to start concentrating also on the spaces that we have available and really start promoting events that are geared towards young people. Dancing events, movies that are relevant to their genres and to their generations. Authors that are, we need to start becoming more hip to what this younger generation is and recognizing that we see them. I think a lot of the things that we cater to are to people that are on a cultural level that might be a little more mature. Our music, our music on the Green is amazing, but I don't see a lot of 16-year-olds going there jamming out. So I think we have to start thinking about how we can promote these sort of activities for young people to be young people here in their home communities. That's it.
I'm getting a flashing red light. I'm guessing this microphone's about to die. If anybody here is in charge of the microphone system. I'm hearing what folks are saying as far as maybe these. There it goes.
It's dead.
Okay. Maybe some of these ideas are pie in the sky and very ambitious. You know how to charge that? That would be great. One of the complaints about the town plan that we have right now is it doesn't go into a lot of detail. It doesn't have a lot of vision. It mentions some things and says we should attract younger folks and we should encourage local business, but it doesn't really take it much farther than that. So maybe that's why it got adopted. It doesn't take any risks, right? As soon as we step into the next room and say, okay, well, then let's do it this way, then it faces criticism or challenge. So I'd rather go big and fail than just say, okay, town plan's done. It says all we have to do is bring in some new businesses and we're good. Everybody agree with that?
Yes. No, if you have all big and fail, what happens to the cost? If you start small, a lot of people have said, let's start small, let's use things we have, let's do something with that. We go big and lose. First of all, if we go big, it'll never get done in our lifetime. And who's gonna pay for it?
Okay.
Sorry. Already, so go back to the taxes. Why add to that burden? Let's do something that we can actually accomplish something and build momentum.
Okay.
Let's not talk.
Well, that's why the purpose of this meeting. I wanted to float this and see what folks thought. If this is we're too aggressive, that's good. We can certainly skip. Sorry, I'll get to you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just I prefer to look at Vermont overall, and I don't see a lot of communities attracting a lot of new businesses. So one thing I did not hear is what the legislature is doing as part of this to be part of the solution. Because right now, Vermont is sorely in need of additional business, a new business model, and there are very few places outside of Burlington that are thriving in that process.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to reiterate your comment and question to folks in the back who probably can't hear it. What's the best? I mean, are you saying what is?
We have to
involve
the state in anything if we're going to get anything done. Act 250, 181, all these other things are strangling new businesses. And if we don't involve the state or get things changed, we're never going to get off the ground.
Okay.
Or even like education, like this lady, young lady said, right? If our schools don't come together, we continue to slide. But if you look at these open storefronts over here, go ahead.
We cannot hear. There's a.
Oh.
Stand up. Please. Stand up and bell.
What?
He's asking about what are we doing as a community to involve the state for a lot of these plans, because without the state, obviously, you're not gonna be able to do much of any of this. And we have shrinking population and businesses leaving because of some of the stuff that's going on, it's basically right. So, you know, we go back to the storefronts in the downtown, a lot of those leases are triple net leases, right? So you pay me the rent, but you pay the taxes and you pay the upkeep. Well, our property taxes have gone up 40% in the last 5 years. What small business can afford to continue to pay those taxes, even if your rent doesn't go up, your overall expense to operate continues to increase and increase and increase and increase. And it's not necessarily the person that owns the building, but you don't know what you're gonna pay from year to year and what your expenses are gonna be if this continues. So
Okay,
that's
so on that point, are you saying for the business incubator model, would we need to then make sure we're taking taxes out of the equation as far as the new business?
in some of the leases, yeah, because some of the larger leases are going to be a triple net lease. So you pay the tax as a business for the property and you pay me the rent and then you maintain the property. That's how that works.
Okay. And if folks missed it, this gentleman was basically mentioning that a lot of the friction we're getting is coming from stuff from Montpelier that we need to sort out as part of that. Yes.
Else in the audience remind me and everyone here tonight, what's the accountability for the decision makers, the select board, the planning board, the town, to, once we get the town plan, what's the accountability that it's actually acted upon?
The comment was, is there any accountability for when we adopt the town plan that we actually do what it says in there? The answer is no. The way it works is if we have something in the town plan that says the town should do this, if they don't do it, let's say they don't build a new community center, are they in violation of the town plan? No, not really, because maybe they just haven't gotten around to it. There isn't funding. They're working on it. It's not really a violation. If they do something that runs counter to what it says in the town plan, instead of building a community center, they tear down the building that they were going to do. Something like that would be running counter to the town plan. There's no official mechanism other than the populace, the citizens can say, and file basically a complaint saying the town is, file a suit basically saying the town is in violation of the town plan. So it's policed by the citizenry, the people. That's effectively it. So it's a very vague thing. I mean, it's like if it says something in the town plan and the town doesn't do it, are they in violation, or is it just, if you look at any town plan, most of the things in here, towns, there's a lot of things and not all the towns get around to doing all of them. So it's supposed to be a guide, but
The zoning activity allows to be what you can do and can't do, which is determined from the town plan.
correct. So if it says in the town plan that we should preserve this area of town because it's a very important natural resource and wooded area that we don't want to hurt, the town can't then turn around and zone that, for a residential or industrial development. That would be an obvious violation. In the hat, sir.
Yeah, so if you have something that goes up in front of the Public Utilities Commission, if your town plan addresses that carries a lot of weight with public utilities. So it really is a planning document for the town that if things go before the state to get reviewed, it's gonna go in favor of whatever the town plan is.
Correct. That the town plan does help you in a couple of ways as far as finding, if you want to go for a grant for something and you've identified in your town plan, we need funding to do this thing, it increases your chances of getting a grant. If somebody wants to do something in town that people don't agree with, if the town plan says the community has spoken and we don't like this, that would help the town in court or any sort of negotiation to say this goes against the town plan. So, yes, sir.
Just following up on the couple of smaller things that the idea of the movie theater and the Manchester Match which got some interest going. Do you have anything in Manchester that would promote donations, a 501c kind of an operation? Maybe a Manchester Match could be a 501c, I don't know. But we talked about using some of the existing facilities, and there's costs to renovate to put 5 businesses in. Could donations, and there's a lot of people around in this area that are looking for ways to contribute to the community, to be a tax exempt kind of a thing to help defer the cost going to the taxpayers in some way. Is there anything like that available now, or is that an opportunity to?
Well, that's why I said in the introductory slide, I said, I don't know who would be this entity. It could be the town, it could be the Manchester Business Associate, any other 501c3. I guess it doesn't really matter, but we certainly could take advantage of fundraising. If we want to have a fundraising campaign to act as a startup capital or incubator to some of these small local businesses, that would be great. That would be great. There's also some funding available through grants that would also do this. So we just have to be mindful of that.
The Manchester Business Association is actually starting a 501c3.
The MBA
Yes.
is in the process of forming foundation and nonprofit wing to help address some of these issues that we're talking about. Relative to the business.
Yes. Yes.
That's why I had a little clarity. The whole function here tonight is to give a 50,000 foot view on where we're going overall. The ordinances are built off of the town plan. The town plan is not necessarily an operational document. It's an old. If anybody has any other questions, if we're gonna plan a facility, I think we need to have it tied to funding, right? Otherwise, it's your point is a tax problem. So, I think we just like to stick to the general guidelines of where we'd like to go overall. And the planning commission will be building the new ordinances accordingly.
Like with many town plans, sometimes there's language in the earlier drafts where it says the town is going to do this, and the local leadership says we don't want to commit to that exact sentence, and they want to say let's maybe change the wording so we have a little bit more flexibility. So 2 years down the road, we have a little bit more wiggle room in actually how we tackle this. That's part of the nature of writing a town plan, is finding the right language and wording that everybody's comfortable with. But I thought to start out today, try and be as specific and as goal oriented as possible. So, yes.
I just want to say, we talked a lot about movie theater, and I think a lot of us do want one here. But I think the point is not so much that it's a movie theater, but there's activities in the evening that are not drinking or spending $100 for a sit-down meal. I have 2 college students about to graduate and move in this May. One did get a job already in town, where that one is looking. Everybody has ideas. But I know the kinds of things that, you know, they're not big drinkers, they don't have the money to go out to eat, but they want to get out of the house. So it's activities, it could be a games cafe, it could be something sponsors, you know, Piano Towns, recreation event, puzzle night, or bingo event, or, you know, we're gonna watch, you know, Rocky Horror together and encourage some fun. So it's about, you know, an activity. And maybe some nights it's movies, some nights it's bowling, some nights it's dance party. But I think you just want to open that up, and it's not just sitting at screen and setting up document.
Okay. Yes, and then I want to check in with Zoom and check in with Jackson in a minute to see if there's any folks on Zoom with comments.
I caught him as he was headed out, but one of the things Bennington actually has is the Better Bennington Corporation, which is a downtown revitalization entity, which is that 501c3 operation. which does things like Harvest Fest and May Fest, which obviously coincides with a lot of the work that the MBA is already working on. But those are other opportunities to like they worked on getting some more vacant storefronts in downtown, build with a yarn shop or a gamer store, whatever it is. That organization helped kind of build that pipeline. So if there were those donations of folks that wanted to be part of that effort, they could be part of that organization and sponsor it that way.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna share that. Checking, Jackson, can I hear, is anybody, any questions, from your end?
There's only been one additional comment from Kate, and it was just with regards to Act 250. She said it's a great concept, great to protect Vermont, but it needs to be professionally timely. The Act 250 body needs to commit to a timeline and response that can be calculated into the cost of the development upfront, and that was from Kate.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Just as somebody who spent 3 years house hunting in this area and is
What was your secret?
32, has started a business and getting ready to start a family. When I really wanted to settle in Manchester because I'm a farmer. You all have some of the best soil in Bennington County. When I was looking around here, I was looking at half-acre to an acre postage stamps for $500,000 to $750,000. So you might be able to get someone to move back home from college for a little while, but they're going to leave again when they want to try and buy a house. If you don't have some mechanism for increasing the affordability of real estate in this area, I wound up settling in Arlington, paying too much to be right on the Battenkill so I could run an agritourism farm. But when we've been bringing people into the state, and I've personally helped move 6 or 7 families into Bennington County to pursue agroforestry enterprises. They're going to Rupert, they're going to Sunderland, they're going to not maybe Arlington, but not so much, but they're going to Pownell. We don't have money, guys. Like we have no money. Interest is incredibly high. So if you want to not just attract, but attract and retain people in my age cohort, something has to be done other than a movie theater. Like I don't care about nightlife. I've gone out once in the last 2 years. I haven't been to a movie in 7 years. I want to be able to afford to start a family. Full stop. That's all I care about. So that centering what's going to attract young people as like we need an entertainment district. I can drive to Saratoga if I want to go party. And that's where I would rather go party because I can get a cab and go back to my hotel. So just sorry, but a little bit from a young person, a little bit of a reality check. We don't care that much about nightlife. We can't afford it. What we want is a safe place to start families, have businesses, and have a community that can survive through hard times because millennials have lived through nothing but hard times. And that is a lot of what attracted me to Vermont was that strong sense of community, not can I walk along the river and go see a local bluegrass band because I can do that at our Skytime Farm every Sunday.
So I want to do a strong second on this. This to me is one of the biggest gaps in this presentation. If you want true economic growth that pays demographic dividends, you will double down, triple down on small business growth. Because they are, to your point, I am not coming from Brooklyn, party in Manchester, but I am coming here to raise a family, start a business, to put down roots. And so I do small, medium-sized business consulting. Almost all of my clients are in their 30s and 40s, right? And it's all folks who are either on their first kid or their second kid. In fact, that's how I ended up making most of my friends, was all of us starting up businesses, right? And we would love storefronting. We would love places to move into, and we were blessed. Like we found a house in the area, we got lucky. But after that luck, when like my wife wanted to start up, she has her own business. We both work from home because we can't afford any kind of real office space. right? Like my wife is a fashion designer. She is essentially a fabric engineer. She did Broadway design for years. She went to London Fashion Week. She does high-end couture for very high-end clients. She cannot open a business in Manchester. Right? It's just not economical for her to work in Manchester. So to me, that is how you actually root and start to develop demographics, is to actually find ways of encouraging small businesses to open.
Right, okay. Well, I mean, that's what part of why the idea of the hula hub with the co-working space. That was, I mean, are you saying, would you not use that co-working space or?
No, because it feels like a play school business. Right.
What?
It feels like a play school business.
Fisher Price, actually.
Fisher Price, yeah.
Yes.
You know, like my wife is a designer. She deserves the respect of having her own storefront like any other business. As much as I would love to have shared spaces, she's not gonna put her machines in there, right? She's not gonna do her actual display of, you know, whatever product that she's designed, right? That's not gonna fit in a multi-use space.
Right.
To the other points before, just as a quick aside, you have loads of tradesmen and tradeswomen coming out of school, right? And they don't have a way of getting started up in a business either. They maybe have a website or something like that, but you know, they're essentially just kind of dumped out of school and told, all right, make ends meet. So again, you have another part of the younger demographic, maybe not necessarily the storefront, but certainly one that can offer services to the community that you could gather or incentivize to maybe, you know, move into the area of Manchester to serve.
Right, so takeaway, you'd much rather have your own personal business space, right?
Yeah. But that's retail space, and I do want to emphasize tradesmen and tradeswomen offering services. They deserve to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I certainly think, I would think that services might be potentially more survivable than retail. Yes.
So I'm gonna stand up, so here in the background. I think some of the things we're all saying is for the younger group, because your slide showed how we're all in their 50s and higher, a big portion. If we want our younger people to come to the area, I think Bennington does this with that group that Jonathan was talking about. Incentivize young, like give them tax breaks, whether it's business tax breaks, whether it's property tax breaks. You're a first-time homeowner that comes through the state, but if you're trying to get a piece of property, have a family here, you can't, and you have really good assets, you still might not qualify for a piece of land because it's so expensive. So if there's a way the town or the foundation that Bill was talking about, they can give you some sort of incentive, a tax break or a grant or whatever, something. I think we just need to explore that because I know what I'm seeing in my business, and it's sad because the young groups can't figure it out. They can't afford it.
So the tax break is an okay idea. I'm not gonna say no. But it's like a cup of water into an ocean. And so what I would actually be curious if the town could get is average expenses for given businesses within, you can either categorize business or you do it by area in the town, right? It's Main Street will be a little bit different from other areas. But like if the town can actually do an analysis of how much it costs, maybe either for rent or total business expenses, or however you want to shape it, but to get that data for the town of Manchester would be, I think, very valuable.
Get the cost for what? Sorry.
For running a business, right? Like what does it cost to run a
The
business?
idea of running through a case scenario where you're starting a business.
Well, no, this is
Taxes, insurance,
real world,
tax benefits.
real world data. How much does it cost to run a business in Manchester? You can do surveys, you can do reports, whatever. The point is today, what are businesses paying? On average for rent per square foot or whatever, right? Like you slice and dice the numbers. But I think that data would actually drive decisions from that. Right, instead of, you know, kind of throwing darts in the dark, you'll be able to actually figure out, all right, so these areas are actually super affordable. These areas are super not affordable. Or maybe it's all expensive across the board, right? Each kind of result will end up driving your decisions from that point. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think we tend to, we're looking at this from the standpoint of, we, as the town, we have limited control over certain things. We can pull levers.
Totally.
And there's obviously some regulations that fall under the town or municipal government purview that definitely have to take a look at those. But some of it might be out of our control. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to give an example. We talked about vacant storefronts, and you mentioned particularly the ones that are very visible. If you were to call the Price Chopper Shopping Center and say, I want to rent the space on the far right-hand side of Price Chopper, they would give you a price all in of around $30 a square foot, probably more. That's a price that is, you know, New York City, Manhattan rent, right? Look at the 3 buildings, J. Crew, that were sold last year. I helped fill those spots. How? Because you look for businesses and you change the model. You don't go and just try to charge for all of the billboards coming from Albany Airport, right? That goes into your CAM charges. The average is $17 a square for that building. And that building is completely full in 1 year. Whereas some of these other buildings that are charging $25, $30, $35 a square foot have been sitting vacant for years. Right? There is the will, and those are the local opportunity, the people who are interested in making a difference in the long-term viability of this town. Those are the ones that are going to make those decisions and say, you know what, I'm not going to charge $30 a square because it's not an insurance write-off. No offense, Andy.
I'm retired.
It's not an insurance write-off, right, for the vacancy. Someone asked about what can we do about vacant properties. There are things we could do. And, right now, a majority of those vacancies are owned by one organization that we put all of our eggs in one basket 30 to 40 years ago. Let's not forget that. And then we forgot when the internet came along and we said, you know what, we're still going to go ahead with that. Let's keep going. Let's go. Let's put the down to the metal. And now we're facing the repercussions, right? We have all these, what were once beautiful buildings. Don't get me wrong. They spent a lot of money on Crystal Palace, on Polo, you just look at that whole corner that's right in the heart of our community. And no one can move in there because they're still asking $30 a square foot. Forget about what the taxes are. We could rebate your 1% sales tax. If you collect as a business, as a new business owner, we say as a community, you know what, you brought in X amount of revenue, here's your 1% sales tax back for the first year. I know it might be just a drop in the bucket, but that's something that we can do. We can't control necessarily what's happening in Montpelier right now, but those are the things we do have the ability to move the levers on. So it takes the will of the people who own the properties to actually turn the tables. And until that one landowner honestly changes in some capacity, we're not going to get there with those local businesses, those local properties in the center of town. It's not.
Thank you. Anybody, frown or no frown, who hasn't had a chance to talk, I feel like we want to kind of wrap up. The next step is really to try and now take what we've heard and put together some recommendations, and then we'll come back to you guys, see what you guys think of those. But any folks that haven't had a chance? The police officer standing here makes me feel nervous. I keep feeling like he's going to come and take me away as soon as I stop talking. So
So to address it, right? I grew up here. I moved to Manchester in 1998. Went to Burton Academy. I graduated 2002 from here. Went off to Castleton State College, where I got a 4-year degree, and then moved back to Manchester. At the time that I moved back in 2007, I worked at Burton for a year in the access program. From the access program, I went to work for Hilton for 10 years. I was on buildings and grounds department there. I'm not going to tell you that I'm an intelligent man or anything like that, but I've seen enough and know enough. I applaud all of you for being here this evening and having this open and honest conversation, because that really is where things change. But in my time here, and I'm just speaking as Brian Madison, I'm not speaking as a representative of the agency or any of the town. I've seen Manchester lose its identity. We went all in on retail, and it really felt like when it was great, right? And for those people that did really well with that, it was fantastic, and it could carry them through. But once that went away, the rest of us were left here with, well, what do we have now? I'm raising a family here. I have 5 children. They go to local schools. And now this whole thing of local schools and how they're being affected and everything like that, it's all part of a larger community thing. So it starts with these conversations. Where do we go from here? I don't know. But this is a group of highly intelligent people that can certainly lead the way, and you are influential, and you know other people, help the process as well. So I'm here because I'm interested in as to what's going on, right? In law enforcement too, like when community's thriving, like my job becomes a little bit easier. I want to see this town succeed. I want to see things be built and to have the infrastructure to sustain it and make sure that, we all succeed. So to those who moved here recently, welcome. But you guys stick around and see what I was loved all along. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all. And anybody who wasn't able to make it, I should have video up online in the next day. Thank you.
Yes, I am. Great work, Michael.
I literally live